Alright, so just got done with my third Quantified Performance match, so I'm going to go ahead and go over gear I used, and then we'll go ahead and go to the match footage. Just like last video, the dog has a ball. She's probably going to make noise and interrupt the video a few times, but let's see if we can keep this on a roll. So starting with extra gear, shooting bag is just this cheap Caldwell bag. It works fine. I didn't use a rear bag, so I was just rocking this one. People always tell me, hey, you need to get a better bag. It'll help you. I don't, whatever. I don't think the bag actually matters all that much. Camera for the match. I know I got a question about that on the last video. Camera that I was using through the scope was a Trigger Cam 2.1, and then all the other footage you see will be using my iPhone to record. And then ammunition was the AAC 77 grain OTM for what I think I was getting at the time. I bought it for like $12.50 a box. For that price, in my opinion, it's the best 77 grain stuff that I'm aware of. Especially, I did try a bunch of different ammo out of the Hellion, and I didn't see a huge difference between the different brands and the different loads. So for me, the AAC stuff is definitely the way to go. So go ahead and get all this stuff out of the way and then talk about the interesting thing. All right, so the gun itself is rocking the Springfield Hellion again. You guys, if you're new to the channel, this is basically the only gun I ever used for Quantified Performance. If you're familiar with the channel, you already know this setup. It's the same one I've been using for this style of match. As far as the setup goes, it hasn't really changed at all. So we'll go ahead and, for those of you who haven't seen this before, on the end of the gun I'm rocking the Silencer Co. Omega 36M. This is in its full length configuration. The little ring you see is the mount for the Magpul suppressor cover. I did not use the suppressor cover for this match. I just, didn't really feel the need to use it. And then this is actually with the 30 caliber flash hider end cap. Excuse me. What are you doing? The dog is happy. Back to important things. But yeah, so that's the can. I chose not to use the suppressor cover just because it's not quite hot enough out yet, and it's not far enough into the summer where I ever really feel the need to use the suppressor cover. The Mirage has not been an issue so far. As we get further into the summer, that will probably change though, so you never know. Next match you might see me rocking it. Zoom out a little bit. The bipod, rocking the Magpul M-Lock bipod. Don't really have any major complaints about the bipod other than, some matches I need to take it off and put it back on between stages. That's kind of, inconvenient to do with M-Lock, but other than that, I don't have any complaints about the bipod. I know some people don't like them. I don't have any issues with it. If you're familiar with the Hellion, you'll look at this and go, what the heck is that? This is a knuckle guard that I designed and 3D printed for myself, because one of the things with bullpups that you don't really, oh dang, mosquitoes. Nice, good one. So this piece here, the 3D printed knuckle guard that I designed and printed myself. The reason I have it on here is because one of the things you don't necessarily realize when using bullpups, if you only ever use them, on a flat range and you don't take them out to either do competition or, actually use them out hunting or whatever it is you're going to be doing with it. If you go up on a barricade or a rock or, down a tree or something like that, it's real easy. You're grabbing it. And it's real easy for whatever you're resting the gun up against on to come down over or past the trigger guard and smash your knuckles. So that's why I printed that on there. And if you look at other military bullpups like the AUG or the FAMAS or the Tavor, you know, they all had this. And so, yeah, I designed and printed one myself for this. The grip, I switched it out. I'm not a huge fan of the one that the Hellion comes with, so I switched it out for the Magpul. This is the MOE K2 Plus. So the knuckle guard uses an M-lock slot up here, and then just kind of fits into the bottom of the pistol grip. But it's held up fine. All right, so for the optic, I'm rocking the March 1.5 to 15 dual focal plane. I picked the optic because the divisions for Quantified Performance specify to compete in general purpose, which is what I'm competing in, your gun has to have a barrel less than 16.5 inches, which this does, and your optic has to have a maximum magnification of 8.5 or less, unless your minimum magnification is 1.5 or less. With those requirements, if you want to go past 8.5, you have to have a magnification of less than 1.5. And so a lot of people will be using a 1 to 8 or a 1 to 10. I went with the March, the 1.5 to 15. This, as far as I'm aware, is the widest range that you can physically fit into general purpose. And unfortunately, next year, this will not even fit in general purpose. They're lowering that minimum threshold down to 1.2. So next year's season, I'll be competing either with a different optic or in a different division. But yeah, so that's the gun that I was using. Pretty straightforward. Go ahead and roll into the match footage. All right, so stage 3, this is my first stage of the day. The stage is called the government. The shooter will start mag inserted, bolt lock back to the rear, safety on. Shooter will start from high port, all personal items in hand and off the ground. Pretty standard stuff. I'm pretty sure that's the same for every stage today. So the actual stage, once the timer goes off, shooter will engage targets 1 through 4 from left to right from the left window. And then after you do that, you move to the right window and repeat the engagement. All the targets on this stage are like poop emoji targets. So interesting choice of target there. Distances are 350, 365, 376, and 382 yards. So not super far. They were a little bit on the small side. Environmentals for this stage, it was early in the day, so the temperature was pretty nice. It was 71 degrees, humidity was 86%, pressure was 29.91 inches of mercury. So based on that, the holds I used, I typically always dial for the first target. I'll set my scope for that first target. And on this stage, that was a 1.5 mil dial. And then after that, I just hold. And so the holds were 0.2, 0.3, and 0.3. So basically, strategy going into this stage was just hold dead center on the first target and then hold high on all the targets after that. Okay, so going into this stage, I think I was either the 3rd or 4th shooter on my squad. I was a little worried because the previous shooters were kind of struggling to hit these targets. And like I said, they're a little on the small side for Quantified Performance. But I'm pretty happy. This first run is just, 1 for 1. So I get them all in the first shot, and I'm pretty happy. However, of course, if the first go around goes well, that means you're going to screw up somewhere else. So, of course, move over to the second window and going through again. And for whatever reason, especially on this third target, I just refuse to hold high for some reason. Like, it's just, I know I'm supposed to. It's just whenever I break the trigger, I'm low. And so I'm just sending rounds repeatedly right under this target. It's just, it's just the way it was. And I ended up wasting all my time on this one target. So I finally get the hit, move on to the last target, and run out of time. Felt kind of bad, especially after, smoking them all on the first go. Just going 1 for 1, and then you move to the second position, and, it all just falls apart. So, stage results, I made 7 out of the 8 hits, and my last shot was at 88.45 seconds. That put me at 25 out of 50, so right smack dab in the middle overall, and then within the general purpose division, that put me at 7 out of 18. All right, stage 4, chimichanga. Same starting conditions as the previous stage. So on this stage, once the buzzer goes off, shooter will engage targets 1 through 4 from shooting position 1, which is on top of the railing. And then after that, you move to the top ratchet strap. There were 2 ratchet straps. You shoot off the top one, and you repeat the engagement. Instead of left to right, the targets go in sort of a zigzag on this stage. Start close right, close left, far right, far left. For this stage, you were supposed to wear a sombrero for the entire course of fire. I guess everybody forgot that. So I was the first shooter on this stage, and we just completely forgot about it. No one kind of said, hey, put your sombrero on. So I actually did not wear the sombrero. After the match director posted on Facebook. He said on Facebook, the point of him wanting you to wear the sombrero was that way you had to deal with the brim of the sombrero interacting with your scope. And luckily, I was actually wearing a baseball cap, so I still sort of had that same interaction going on. So I don't think, I had an unfair advantage as opposed to the other shooters. Target distances on this stage were 104, 80, 219, and 330 yards. So the environmentals for this stage were actually the same as the previous stage. They didn't change in the amount of time that it took us to get to that stage. And then so the holds for this stage, I didn't dial at all, because my gun is zeroed at 100 yards, so I just left it at 0. So for the targets, for target 1, the hold is just dead on. Target 2, again, dead on hold. For target 3, it was a 0.5 mil hold. Well, technically 0.4, but I held 0.5 mil, or tried to. And then target 3 was a 1.3 mil hold, so I just held 1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and apologize for the camera placement on this stage. I wasn't sure exactly where the RO was going to be standing, so I figured the camera would be in a good spot here, but it was not. I knew this stage would basically be a race, just seeing who could get through it the fastest. So my goal was just to get all my hits in a reasonable amount of time.
I can't see 3.
I got 3. You got 4?
Yeah, I get 4.
Bye.
So shooting off the railing is not particularly difficult. The targets are kind of a weird shape, but they just kind of point center mass. I was very happy that I hit this 4th target, first shot. Smacked the muzzle of my gun on the railing on the way down. That probably wasn't ideal. So you can see sort of my strategy for shooting off of the ratchet strap. I tucked my bag between my knee and my torso, so that way I could get a bit more stability. And make a decent run of it. So, stage results, made all my hits. Time was 50.60 seconds, and that put me in 12th out of 50 overall, and 3 out of 18 for general purpose. Like I said, I was supposed to be wearing the sombrero, but everybody forgot about the sombrero, so I started the stage without it. The RO decided, that was his fault, so he didn't penalize me for it. He could have, and if he had chose to do that, that's the way it is. Those were the rules of the game, so it's up to him, and that would have been fine with it. But he chose to not penalize me, so I appreciate that. All right, so stage 5. stage is called Nonsense. Again, same starting position and condition. So after the buzzer, the shooter will engage targets 1 through 4 from shooting position 1. And then after that, shooter will move to a second shooting position. You get to choose between 2 ports that were cut in the side of the Connex box, and then you re-engage targets 1 through 4. These targets were pretty easy. They're all nice and big, except for the first one. The first one's a bit skinny. Target 1 is out 103 yards, 2 is 143, then 164, and then 270 yards. Environmentals for this stage: temperature had gone up to 78 degrees, humidity had gone down to 72%, pressure had increased a little bit to 29.92. So that led to holds. Again, dead hold for targets 1 and 2, again for target 3, and then for target 4, it was a 0.8 mil hold. So for that target, I just held 1 mil.
You can go ahead and pull your thing out. Insert magazine. Do you understand course fire? Alright, happy with your scope cap? You want to get your scope cap open? Happy with the depth on it?
All right, so going into this stage, I know the targets are pretty decent size, except for this first target. The first target was a yardstick. It was tall and skinny, and I was actually kind of worried that I wouldn't hit that one because for whatever reason, those, either if it's a tall and skinny or short and really wide, those targets always, give me a little bit of hesitance. But managed to go 1 for 1 on those. Move over to the port, and I know from shooting here before that the bag does not fit in the port. One of the things with the Hellions is their height over bore is gigantic, so I just ditched the bag and go and just pushed the bipod up against the wall, and it worked out fine. Yeah, so I ended up going 1 for 1 on that stage, so I didn't miss at all, which I'm pretty happy about. And then the time was 48.43 seconds, which that landed me 22 out of 50 overall, and then 5 out of 18 for general purpose. All right, stage 6, take it outside. Shooters will engage targets 1 through 6 supporting the rifle on the stage prop. Shooters will engage targets left to right and near to far. So targets 1 and 2 were at 192 and 194. Targets 3 and 4 were at 386 and 387. Targets 5 and 6 were at 644 and 857. So that target 6 ended up being a problem for basically everybody. Environmentals for this stage: temperature was 80 degrees, humidity was 69%, pressure was 29.91. Based on those environmentals, holds were 0.2 mils for targets 1 and 2, 1.9 mils for targets 3 and 4, 5.6 mils for target 5, and 10.1 mils for target 6. Alright, so this stage was pretty straightforward. There wasn't a whole lot to it. The first few targets were nice and big, and you're shooting modified prone, so it's, the marksmanship part of it was basically nothing. These first 4 targets are entirely just speed, and I could have gone faster. I really should have just pushed it. I mean, you can see in the footage, it's just nice and lazy. So I get through those first 4 fine, move to the target 5, send a round right over the top of it. And this is my first clue, something's up. So I made a mental note of that, I had to hold low on that target. And so for the next target, I start off holding a little left and low because that's where I held right and low because I assumed the shots were going high left, and I just couldn't get it to connect at all. So I ended up trying, all sorts of things. Held left, held right, held up, held down. I just could not get around to connect on this last target. Tried zooming in, adjusting parallax to see if I can get a better sight picture. I'm pretty sure somebody told me that I was going right, and so I tried to adjust left, and it's just, didn't work out. Luckily, I think a lot of people struggled with that stage. If I remember right, like half the shooters did not finish that stage. Putting a target like that up on the back of the hill is kind of mean, but hey, if everyone has to do it, it's fair. Stage results, I only got the 5 out of the 6 hits. Time was 90 seconds. I timed out. Overall placement, 37 out of 50. Division placement, 12 out of 18. So I didn't place particularly well on this stage. All right, stage 7. This is actually probably my favorite stage of the day, mainly because the target distances were something new that I'd never done before. So stage 7 setup is pretty simple. Shooter will engage targets 1 through 4 from table in the modified prone position. So just like stage 6, engagement sequence is as follows: targets 1, 2, 3, 4, then 2, then 1. Targets are IPSC targets. Target 1 was at 645 yards. Target 2 was at 800. And then targets 3 and 4 were at 1,000 yards, which this was my first time ever shooting out 2,000 yards. So going into the stage, I was a bit curious to see what sort of wind hold would be, would my dope be correct, all that sort of stuff. So I actually didn't get a good screenshot of my weather conditions for this stage, but from what I can tell, at the time, the temperature was about 81 degrees, humidity was about 67%, pressure was about 29.91, and that meant that the holds, so target 1 ended up being dial 5.6 mils, and then I decided to hold after that, and so holding, I should have held 3.1 mils, and then for targets 3 and 4, I should have held 8.3 mils. So, like I said, this is my first time ever shooting out to 1,000 yards. I was pretty excited to do it. I was curious to see, is my dope on? Is there going to be any wind issues? Is there going to be something weird that happens? Because before this, the furthest I had ever shot was 820 yards. So, same as previous stage, take a shot at the 600-yard target, and I'm sending them right over the top of it. And I'm not sure why that was happening. I ended up holding about 3/4 of a mil low to hit it, and I just decided to do that on all the other targets. When I transitioned to the 1,000-yard target, you can see I hold bottom of the target at 5 mils. I should have been holding 8. That's because when I looked at the Strelok data that it gave me, the jump from the 800 to 1,000 was an extra 5 mils, and I looked at that number, not 8. So that's why I was holding 5, is because I just looked at the wrong number. Overall, pretty dang happy with how the march works out on this stage. I have plenty of magnification. The glass clarity is really good. I can easily spot the splash at 1,000 yards with this. I guess this is why, in the future they're taking this scope out of general purpose. It's because I guess they feel like it provides too much of an advantage for that class. So, one thing I just got reminded of was that during this stage, the whole time I was shooting, I had a spider dangling from my glasses right in front of my eye. And that was a little distracting, to say the least. I didn't know it was a spider until the very end. I thought it was like a mosquito or something, but no, it was a spider. Stage results, got all the hits, which I'm pretty happy about. time was 81.3, so I was cutting a little close on time, but I ended up getting it fine. Overall placement, 16 out of 50. Division placement, 5 out of 18. I'll take it, given that this is my first time going to 1,000 yards. The note there says only 5 out of the 18 general purpose shooters completed the stage, so I was the last one within my division to complete that. All right, stage 8. So the match director decided to call it LGBT MRQ. So the MRQ stage is a stage that is required to be at every quantified performance match. It's one of their basically standardized stages. So MRQ stands for mid-range qualifier, I believe. So shooter will engage targets 1 and 2 from left to right, standing unsupported. Shooter will use the ladder to support the weapon while shooting targets 3 through 5, and then the shooter will go prone for target 6. So the target order is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, then 6. Target 1 is at 111, target 2 is at 108. Targets 3 and 4 are at 345 yards, target 5 is at 350, so that was nice having all those right at the same distance. And then target 6 is at 610 yards. Environmentals for this stage were 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity was 64%. Pressure had dropped a little bit to 29.90. So the holds for this stage were, 0 for targets 1 and 2, 1.5 mil holds for target 3, 4, and 5, and then target 6 was a 5.0 mil hold. However, what I decided to do was set my scope for the mid-range targets. So I went ahead and dialed 1.5 mils. So what my holds ended up being were targets 1 and 2, I'd hold 1.5 mil low. Targets 3 through 5 would be dead holds, and then target 6 would be hold 3.5 mils. All right, so mid-range qualifier. I'm pretty familiar with this stage at this point. This is my 4th time doing this stage, so I kind of know how it goes. Timer goes off. These standing targets, I was a little sloppy. Get that first shot, but then the second one, it just takes me a few shots to get it. Just kept jerking the trigger. So I moved to the ladder, and you'll see me holding sort of, bottom of the targets, and that's because, like I discussed on the previous stages, for whatever reason, I was hitting high. And so, I had to hold about, 3/4 of a mil low to hit these targets. Overall, I wish I could have pushed through these a little bit quicker, but I think this is my fastest run on this stage so far. I'll have to double check my footage from previous matches. But as I typically do, go down to this 600-yard target and nail it first shot. It's always super satisfying to do that. So stage results, hits 8 out of 8, time 60.79 seconds. So that puts me in 18th out of 50 overall, and then 4 out of 18 in general purpose. All right, stage 1, Hot Wheels. This was a fun stage. So for anyone who has not shot Quantified Performance, you might not know Cameron Hayes. He's the match director for this match. I've competed with him before. Good dude. He only has one leg and his hand is all messed up. So stages 1 and 2, he designed and kind of forced everyone to compete in a way that he would have to compete. So stage 1, you actually have to be sitting in a wheelchair the whole time. The actual stage itself is pretty straightforward. So shooter will engage targets 1 through 6 from left to right while seated in the wheelchair. Shooter will then raise the gun completely off the shooting table, reset, and re-engage targets 1 through 6. So target 1 is at 184, target 2 is at 273, target 3 is at 213, as well as target 4. Target 5 is 121, and target 6 is 177. So environmentals for this stage, temperature was 85 degrees, 56% humidity, and the pressure was 29.88. Pressure was starting to drop a bit. We had a big storm rolling through, so there was I'm glad that we got off of the long range stuff before all that wind hit. Shooting 1,000 yards in the wind that we were dealing with would have not been fun, especially for a first time attempt at 1,000 yards. I really lucked out on that previous stage. And so based on those environmentals, the holds for target 1 is 0.1, target 2 is 0.8, then 0.3, then 0.3, then 0.1, then 0.1. But most of these targets were just basically point and shoot. So strategy for this stage, I couldn't make up my mind as to whether or not I wanted to use the bag. Because you can kind of see the height of the, the block that I'm shooting off of it's a little tall for the bag. And so I ended up using it for this first run through, and then I actually ditch it the second time through. I didn't feel like it was something I needed to have. All these targets were nice and big, so this was just a race stage. Ended up missing that third plate, but lift the gun up, bring it back down. Like I said, I ditched the bag on the second go through. It felt like it was in the way. The wind had definitely picked up quite a bit. I had briefly considered, should I hold wind? And then, looking at these targets, I was like, okay, never mind. These targets are gigantic. I'm not even going to bother with wind. Made all my hits. Time was 57.59. Overall placement was 23 out of 50, so not particularly fast. A lot of people cruise through that stage, and then division placement was 5 out of 18. All right, stage 2, advantages. So for this stage, shooter will engage targets 1 through 7 as follows. Target 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7. So, just back and forth. However, one of the competitors in my squad actually killed one of the targets. So when I got to shoot the stage, there was no target 4. So what you had to do was target 3, then 1, then 5, then 1, then 6, then 1, then 6 again, and then 7. Then 1, then 7. The challenge for this stage was that, you can see it on the stage description. Shooter will engage all targets left foot off the ground using a crutch under your left arm for balance, a tennis ball in your left hand, and rifle resting on shooting prop. So that tennis ball could not leave your hand throughout the whole stage. So once the timer goes off, that ball has to be in your hand the entire time. And then same with your left foot. Your left foot had to be off the ground the entire time. Target 1 was 234 yards. Target 2 was 146. 3 is 185. 4 is 158. 5 is 156. 6 is 173. And 7 is 172. So luckily, all these targets were within the point blank range of my 0, so I did not have to do anything weird with holding high then low or anything like that. Environmentals for this stage, 86 degrees, 54% humidity, 29.87 inches of mercury for the pressure. And then holds, basically the only one that was weird was I had to hold half a mil high for target 1, and then all the other targets were basically a dead hold. All right, so the cripple stage. The most challenging thing about this stage is that by the time I got to it, I was the very last shooter of the day on this stage, and so the first target was just absolutely hammered, and it was pretty difficult to see even when I cranked up the magnification on my scope. So I spent probably more time than I needed hunting for that first target, and that's probably what cost me finishing this stage. So you can see that target is it's pretty difficult to spot against the background. And yes, those targets are shaped as what you think they are. I was doing okay. I was kind of in my head. I was like, okay, I got this. I can finish this stage. But I took too much time. So that was the wrong target. I should have shot the previous target again, but ran out of time anyway. So I had 3 targets left to go. Stage results, hits 9 out of 12, time 90 seconds. Still didn't place too terribly. Placed right smack dab in the middle, 24 out of 50. And then within general purpose, I still ended up placing fairly well, 4 out of 18. So I like that stage. It was fun to do something kind of off the wall like that, something really different. I hope that Cameron includes stages like that going forward. They're, in my opinion, pretty fun. I think he got some feedback. People didn't like it, but in my opinion, those people are lame and losers and need to take things less serious. If you're not having fun, you're not living life. To be fair to those people who didn't like this stage, I do think, stages like this do run the risk of making it difficult to compare matches. If you have one match in one part of the country where the match director is doing stages like this, but then none of the other matches are doing that, the results from that match might be a little bit skewed, and so it's hard to compare those matches. And then you run into issues with combining those scores and stuff. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just, I like the stage. I understand why people didn't like the stage, but, whatever. All right, so match results. For the match, I made 63 out of 68 hits, so that's, pretty good. I only dropped 5 targets for the whole match. I would have liked to clean the whole match, but, you can't have it all. Total time was 566.89. When you include penalties, my total time was 716.89. So that put me overall in 20 out of 50, which that's all right. I'll take that. For general purpose, I placed 5th out of 18, which I'm pretty happy with that. Definitely looking forward to the next match. Definitely looking forward to more matches directed by Cameron. Hopefully he can come up with some more interesting stage designs. As usual, if you have comments or questions about stuff I'm using, I know I get a lot of questions during the match about the rifle I'm using. But if you're watching and you have questions, go ahead and ask. I'll get to them. I don't have a life, so I will see them. And if it's a legitimate question, I'll definitely respond.